Does this look familiar to anyone? This is a desire path. A desire path is any unplanned pathway that exists because of repeated use. Desire paths often come about when designated pathways aren't serving us in the way that they should. We often see desire paths in urban areas, like in parking lots and next to sidewalks. Sometimes, designated pathways are neither efficient nor desirable. Over time, those who instinctively cut through foliage to get to their destination more efficiently develop these desire paths, whether intentionally or not. Once they exist, they become so commonplace that we don't even recognize them as being different from the area's original design. We often see desire paths in natural areas, like on hikes and in parks. Even in nature, there are certain pathways that we understand we are meant to follow. But sometimes these pathways don't feel natural, whereas desire paths do. So desire paths accommodate our individual desires that aren't being met with designated pathways. And I believe that the essence of what they do can be applied when we need to navigate unfamiliar situations or make bigger decisions in our lives. Now, I want you to imagine it's a Friday evening, and there's a party you're supposed to go to tonight. But after having a really long day, the only thing you want to do is order pizza, watch TV, and go to bed early. But you already told your friends you'd be there, and you've been planning to go for weeks. So you refuse your instinct to stay in and decide to go anyway. As you expect, you end up having a really long night and almost wish you stayed home. Even after understanding that going to the party was not how you wanted to spend your evening, you decided not to stray from your original plan. This is called path dependency, which refers to a phenomenon in which past decisions constrain future ones. It describes the tendency of people to resist change and hold themselves back from exploring alternative options. I thought I was exempt from this phenomenon a few years ago when I took my senior year marine biology class. There I was, watching The Cove, a documentary about dolphins. But it's not just about dolphins. From the hidden camera's perspective, I see a big pool of red water and dolphin corpses left stranded on the beach. These are the dolphin slaughters in Taiji, Japan. Then, a week later, I'm watching Blackfish, a history about captive whale treatment, deception, and 4 fatal whale attacks. These documentaries moved me, and I felt inspired to dedicate myself to evoking change. So, being in the midst of college application season, I found this to be a call to become a marine biologist. In college, I took class after class to fulfill the requirements for my degree. I persevered through chemistry and math, arguably my worst subjects. I spent 2 years of my life dedicating myself to my goal of evoking change and following a designated pathway so conveniently laid out for me. Now, I want to mention that there can be value in following a designated pathway and participating in curated structures within a complex system. Take hiking trails, for example, or sidewalks. These structures are often designed to prevent us from encountering dangerous situations. And, of course, educational frameworks are designed so that we feel comfortable in knowing how to proceed in our future. That's why people ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and that's why we develop 5-year plans. How great would it be if we knew where we would be in 5 years? It's only natural to plan ahead. But paths as long and complicated as these are rarely so predictable. This was my big plan. So I was going to go to college, and I was going to do everything that I thought I needed to do in order to make a difference in the world. But the process wasn't seamless, as my plan suggested it might be. When I took my first physics class, I struggled tremendously. At the time, I didn't think I had what it took to become a marine biologist if I could barely make it through a lower division class. But I had already put in years of dedicating myself to achieving my goal, and I thought it was still something I wanted to do. I knew I could do it if I wanted to. So I stuck to my path. But when I started learning about parasites and ocean depth zones, I panicked. I didn't realize how much more there was to marine biology than just the parts I was interested in. And to make it worse, it seemed as if everyone around me was thriving in that space. I didn't feel like I loved the field as much as everyone else did. But I had already spent entire summers dedicating myself to taking difficult science classes and told my friends and family about my plans to travel the world on boats to study dolphins in the wild. And of course, I already scheduled all of this into my 5-year plan. There were no shortcuts or loopholes that would allow me to get what I wanted. So I stuck to my path. And then the day came where I got to take my first upper division research class. I was given the opportunity to research any topic I wanted to for the entirety of the quarter. I chose the topic I had been dying to research and write about: whales. This was my chance to make the difference I had been wanting to make. But after barely making it through the first page of the first research article I needed to read, I realized I don't like research at all. I reached out to professors and marine biologists, and they all told me that marine biologists only do what they do because they love it. I noticed that about the community of people I was learning with, but the same did not apply for me. I realized that I don't like the idea of spending my time in a lab or computing numbers using R or spending months at sea away from my friends and family. I realized that I don't like any of these things that encompass a marine biology career. But that is exactly where I would be if I continued to follow my path any longer. So I finally deviated from my plan and stopped allowing path dependency to guide my future. And eventually, my plan began to look something a little more like this. Switching from a focus in marine biology to communication studies didn't mean I was dropping my goals. Instead, it meant I would be approaching them in a completely different way. My goal has remained the same. I want to reach people in the same way that those documentaries reached me. But instead of doing so through scientific research, I will do so through communication. No matter what we pursue, obstacles are inevitable, and changing environments spark new ideas. So, while designated paths can be useful in identifying stepping blocks, refusing to abandon them can be limiting. Path dependency plagues us because it prevents us from exploring other options and following desire paths that may be more aligned with our goals. Opportunity lies within the freedom to choose which paths we take. And I believe desire paths are the perfect framework to expose what freedoms are available to us. But desire paths don't create themselves, and we aren't capable of creating them on our own. Desire paths exist only after they are repeated enough to leave the deep imprints on the ground that we recognize as pathways. So, over time, we see more and more desire paths that reflect where both individuals and populations of people would like to go. With that, I ask, why do we treat desire paths like we are the only ones taking them? While it is important that we vouch for the world to accommodate some of our individual needs, it is also important to decentralize paths as something that inherently belongs to us. Pathways are never designed for a single individual person, so no desire path is limited to being just yours or mine. With multiple people following multiple paths, we have this cool ability to see where they're going and what trails they're leaving behind. These are some of the desire paths that I found, but I only started to notice them after I started to search for them. Now, I find them everywhere. Whether you're stuck in a rut or you feel excited about the path that lies ahead of you, I invite you to search for the desire paths around you. Instead of stumbling upon desire paths, let's actively seek them and take note of the ways in which others before us and around us have paved the way. Become community-oriented. Why not surround yourself with a community of people who are traveling in all sorts of directions? People watch. What are those around you experiencing, and how does it align with what you're looking for? As someone who is much more involved in the world of communication, I cannot emphasize this enough. Listen to stories. How can we discover paths if we don't learn about the ones that others are following? If you are willing to learn from those who are navigating all sorts of paths around you, you open yourself up to endless possibilities. By actively resisting path dependency and engaging with communities of people, you can discover the desire paths that are right for you. Thank you.